What I think is interesting, when President Trump won, no one expected that he was going to win. So, I mean, in my own office, countries that I have connections with were reaching out to me to figure out, how do I actually get into the White House? How do I make connections? Because we don't know anybody from the campaign, number one. Number two, to have a back channel is not illegal.
All right.
What's the big deal about a back channel being set up? Now, Prince says he didn't do that, but if he did, there's nothing wrong with that, number one. And isn't this about Russia collusion? This is an investigation that Adam Schiff has made a name for himself on Russian collusion. This meeting took place in January of 2017, 3 months after the election. So what's the big deal on Russia collusion? There would be none from this meeting. Or if there was a claim that there was obstruction from President Trump in the investigation, this has nothing to do with that either. So I think what is happening is Adam Schiff sees the Russia investigation in collusion with Trump and Russia petering out, and he's trying to prop the investigation up with
what about this accusation that anybody who happened to be tied to the president at all, even if you're just a supporter of the president, Eric Prince, I believe, has donated money to President Trump's campaign.
Brother of Betsy.
If they happen to be somewhat connected in any obscure way, Adam Schiff seems to accuse them of being part of this grand conspiracy of collusion.
Well, I think a couple of things are at play here. First, Adam Schiff's and the Intelligence Committee's investigation isn't the big game in town. Bob Mueller's investigation is, and I'm sure Eric Prince will have to talk to them. And George Nader has now told them something different. So there's two stories. So someone's not telling the truth, and I think Bob Mueller will get to the bottom of that. But what I've also repeatedly said is if folks tied to the Trump campaign who were acting on their behalf did nothing wrong with Russia, they certainly seem like they're trying to cover something up, and they're acting guilty. And if Eric Prince is lying to Congress, I'm not saying he is. He's been accused of that. Bob Mueller's going to call him in and say, you have to answer why you were meeting with the Russians. And to your point, why wasn't he just setting up an above-board meeting?
Because he says he wasn't part of the transition. But
you know, a secret channel looks shady.
Yeah, but he's denying that he ever tried to set up the secret channel. My point,
but that's
Harris,
the accusation that someone has testified to.
My point, Harris, is that anybody connected to the Trump campaign is being accused of setting up a back channel when official channels would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah, so I just go back. What?
Then they should have done that.
Well, I just go back to the timeline. I don't see how you can go per the actual timeline and see this as a problem. I think it's a pretty clear issue. It's unfortunate maybe that Eric Prince didn't know enough to say, you know, I didn't do this, but even if I had, it wasn't a problem. But he didn't say it that way. You know, it didn't come out that way.
But it may be a problem, though.
Congressman, rather than the idea that is put out by some of the Republicans on this committee that things are starting to wrap up, to your point, it looks like this is only widening at this point.
Well, listen, I don't think the House Intelligence investigation is widening or focusing on Donald Trump. I think that investigation is actually petering out. But can I just, back channels aren't illegal.
Right.
But just think, when Donald Trump first took office, he couldn't have a private conversation with anybody without that conversation being leaked out. He had a fear that his own Trump Tower was being surveilled by the intelligence community.
Why are you shaking your head no?
Because there's no indication Trump Tower was tapped. He's just said that there's no evidence to back it up.
So
that's why
that will come out at one point in the near future, I think. But let me just say this: why wouldn't you set up private conversations when you don't think the current conversations you have aren't being listened to? And I think that's maybe the reason why they're trying to set up different channels.
Don't lie about it to Congress, then.
All right, we're going to move on.
That's the problem.
And you gave us a little nugget. I don't know if everybody was paying attention, but in the next short little while, we're going to find something out.
We'll see.